Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. We're on our lunch. We're talking about the WWE Hall of Fame. It seems that WWE made not one, but two announcements for the WWE Hall of Fame today. The WrestleMania 36 Hall of Fame is going to be headlined by none other than the nWo. Honestly, in my opinion, borderline number one or number two for the best factions in the history of wrestling. Definitely, you can put the nWo right up against there with the Four Horsemen, and you can go either way with it. You can go number one and number two, but I don't see any other faction out there that is going to bring it there. The nWo honestly changed the face of wrestling. It definitely took wrestling out of the cartoon era of the early 90s and transformed Nitro into a must-see television event that, you didn't really know if what you were watching was real or if it was just fake wrestling storylines. You didn't know what to believe. Many people thought that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, a.k.a. Razor Ramon and Diesel, were invading WCW on a weekly basis where no security guard could stop them, and Vince McMahon was personally sending them to send a war down south to Ted Turner's WCW. That is honestly what a good majority, one of the best stories of all time is when they did the nWo takeover, when Hall and Nash showed up with the baseball bats. Hogan was in that one as well. And they just started laying everybody out backstage during a tag match that was Sting and Luger against Ric Flair, and I believe, I'm pretty sure it was Arn Anderson that was out there. Jimmy Hart came running out there. Nobody really knew whether to believe Jimmy or not. Everybody thought that maybe the Dungeon of Doom sent him out there as some sort of a way to get them maybe to walk through the curtain, and then they would get laid out with the steel chair to get some sort of advantage over them. Jimmy Hart was a bad guy. He was asking some good guys for help, so it didn't really make sense. But once you finally got back there, nWo was just causing havoc, just beating up everybody, spray painting over the Ted Turner signs, and people were calling the police, like the real police, saying that there was some sort of a riot happening at Universal Studios, and basically the police showed up, and it was a real event that people thought, some shit was going down. Hogan, Hall, and Nash, when you look at the nWo as members of that, easily one of the best factions of all time. From there, they would add Ted DiBiase, Virgil, Eric Bischoff, Buff Bagwell, and that's kind of when the good members ended. You can basically put Kurt Hennig as a good member of the nWo as well, even though he got straddled into being that B team later on in the late years, but guys like, Stevie Ray, Disco Inferno, maybe even nWo Sting, even though if you don't have nWo Sting, you don't really have the Starrcade 97 deal, one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time from my maybe teenage years that I can remember being hyped for, actually being able to see Sting and Hogan, the match that we never thought we'd be able to see, because Sting would show up at Nitro, but he wasn't a wrestler for them because he was a free agent. He never made it seem like he was going to WWF, but he never really seemed like he wanted to help out as the nWo was causing havoc. He just basically watched, and that's why people really kind of believed maybe he was with them. Maybe he was in the rafters looking down to make sure that WCW guys never got an advantage on him. There was always that big question mark around him, but I think that they were one of the best storyline factions of all time. The Horsemen were great. You put those four dudes out there, you have a real street fight. The Horsemen might come out on top of that one if you put them in their prime against the nWo versus their prime. I'm not saying the nWo of 96 against the Horsemen of 96. I'm talking about, Tully. I'm talking about Arn, Ole, Rick. You can throw Dylan in there. Maybe Dylan and Eric Bischoff will start fighting out there. I'm not quite sure. But, they might beat their ass. But I don't really think they were making people change the channel to watch NWA back in the day. I don't have many childhood memories of watching the Horsemen back in the day. So that's why I think that the nWo was better, because, they made me a WWF Monday Night Raw guy flip over and watch Nitro. I always rooted for WWF. I wanted them to come from behind and take this over. But there was no doubt in my mind that maybe they didn't have the better show, but they definitely had better storylines, because it took WWF a while to sort of take note of this, to get rid of the Sparky Plugs, to get rid of the Doinks. And that's what the nWo did, just by having Razor Ramon and Diesel come out there as Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Then more guys just started using names. And yeah, today that kind of does suck, because in NXT, it's kind of like they just make guys pick two names out of the hats and they just put it together, and that's how they make their names today. And it just, they don't even sound real. And that doesn't make sense, because any name could be anybody's name, but just the way that they put names together, they all sound stupid. And they all, remember when Dolph Ziggler came up? People, how much people hated that name. Now we're kind of used to that one. And the ones that they come up with now really suck, but yeah, we'll see. nWo, Hall of Fame. If they're the headliner of WrestleMania 36, they deserve it. There's a rumor that, I think WWE's already started tweeting about Batista going in. I don't think they've actually said that the nWo is going in, even though ESPN did. Maybe they got their signals crossed, and maybe they announced on the wrong day, since they started to give Hall of Fame announcements to different people to sort of be the first ones to break the news on. Maybe they broke news a week early on accident or something like that. But basically, nWo and Batista going into Hall of Fame. This could be one of the biggest Hall of Fame classes that we've had in a long time. Hogan, Hall, Nash. I know that a lot of guys by, what am I looking for? But a lot of guys by association are going to get it, but those are the three that you need to have there. But you need to really think about Buff, Conan, Eric Bischoff. The Giant kind of sucked in the nWo, honestly. That's what killed his career, and sort of started the back and forth Big Show. Nobody cares if he's a good guy or a bad guy, because he's going to turn heel babyface next week from now. So we'll see. Peace out, everybody.